Ladies and gentlemen, sons and daughters of the Most High, hear me loud and clear today. When God puts his hand on a woman's life, no devil in hell, no weapon on earth, no trap from the enemy can prosper. When God shields you, it doesn't matter who plots against you, because his covering is not partial, it's divine, intentional, and impenetrable. This world is full of schemes, manipulation, and darkness. Evil doesn't always wear a mask. It comes disguised as charm, opportunity, and even friendship. But when a woman walks with God, she walks with discernment, grace, and favor that confuses her enemies and frustrates every demonic agenda. Let me tell you this, there is a difference between being a woman and being a woman of God under protection. And today, we're going to talk about 8 signs that reveal when a woman is divinely guarded by heaven itself from the snares of evil people. You ever walk into a room and immediately feel like something is off? No evidence, no obvious signs, just a shift in your spirit you can't ignore. That's not anxiety. That's not overthinking. That's discernment. And when a woman is protected by God, discernment becomes her superpower. She doesn't need people to show their true colors because her spirit picks up what their words try to hide. She sees what others miss. She hears what others ignore. Her instincts are not random. They are prophetic signals from heaven itself. There is something powerful about a woman who doesn't need to be loud, dramatic, or confrontational to spot deception. She can sit in silence, watch the room, and know exactly who's real and who's pretending. That's not suspicion. That's spiritual sensitivity. She doesn't go around calling people out. So she will quietly exit the circle that God tells her is unsafe. She doesn't ask for opinions when God already gave her confirmation in the form of discomfort. And don't mistake her quietness for weakness. She's reading everything with her spirit before her mind even catches up. This kind of woman walks with a divine radar that cannot be manufactured. It wasn't built in trauma. It was birthed in prayer. It didn't come from reading people. It came from walking closely with the one who sees all. The closer she gets to God, the clearer her lens becomes. She may not understand the full picture, but she trusts the signal. When God says something's not right here, she doesn't need a second opinion. She obeys, even if it makes no sense to people around her. She can sit in a conversation and feel the tension no one else acknowledges. She can smile at someone while her spirit is screaming, "This one is not safe." And that voice doesn't come from fear, it comes from divine preservation. Evil people hate that about her. They don't understand how she always seems one step ahead of their schemes. They can't figure out how their charm didn't work on her. They're confused why their lies didn't land. That's because they're up against more than a woman. They're up against a woman with discernment, backed by heaven. She doesn't waste time investigating what God already revealed in her spirit. When her peace disappears, that's her signal to pay attention. She listens to silence. She pays attention to tone. She watches energy shift. And when she sees patterns repeat, she doesn't wait for it to explode. She walks away before the fire starts. Her discernment is why she doesn't tolerate just anyone in her space. She knows that evil doesn't always show up in obvious ways. It can be a friend with secret envy, a partner with hidden motives, a family member with a destructive tongue. And while others get blinded by familiarity or emotional ties, she listens to that quiet nudge from the Spirit that says, they don't belong in your life. She may not explain it, she may not have proof, but she'll act on it and later realize God was protecting her from something far deeper than what she could see. She's not paranoid. She's not judgmental. She just knows that her peace is expensive, her energy is sacred, and her calling is too critical to let the wrong people sit at her table. That's why she doesn't entertain what doesn't align with her spirit. She may smile, she may be polite, but deep inside, she's filtering everything through discernment. And that filter has saved her more times than she can count. This is why she doesn't get stuck in toxic cycles anymore, or she doesn't try to fix what God told her to release. She's not begging for clarity when the Holy Spirit already gave her conviction. She doesn't override her intuition just to please others because she's seen the price of ignoring it. She's lived through the consequences of giving chances to people God already warned her about. And now she chooses discernment over familiarity. She chooses spiritual alignment over emotional attachment. She's the kind of woman who doesn't need the enemy to reveal himself. God already told her who he was. And once she sees it, she moves accordingly. Not out of fear, but out of wisdom. Not to be rude, but to be safe. Because when you're protected by God, your discernment becomes more than just a feeling, it becomes a weapon. Have you ever wanted something so badly that you prayed for it, cried over it, and believed for it with every ounce of your faith, only for it to fall apart, disappear, or never happen at all? You thought it was the right opportunity, the right relationship, the right timing, but then suddenly the door slammed shut in your face. And in that moment, it felt like failure. It felt like rejection. It felt like something was stolen from you. But what if I told you that wasn't rejection at all? It was divine redirection. What if the very thing you're calling a loss was actually God's way of shielding you from destruction? See, when a woman is protected by God, he doesn't just open doors, he closes them too. And while we shout about open doors, we rarely praise him for the ones he shuts. We celebrate opportunities, but we mourn when they disappear, forgetting that sometimes the greatest form of protection is a denied request. She might have begged God to let her keep it, but he loved her too much to say yes. Because God sees what we don't. He hears conversations we're not in. He knows intentions that are hidden behind smiles. And when he blocks something, he's not being cruel. He's being careful. When a woman walks with God, he guards her path like a father guards his daughter. He sees the trap before she ever steps into it. He sees the heartbreak, the manipulation, the sabotage long before she even suspects it. So when that job doesn't call back, when that friend ghosts her, when that relationship ends without closure, it's not because she wasn't enough, it's because the road ahead was too dangerous to let her pass. But here's the catch. She didn't see it at the time. She questioned herself. She wondered what she did wrong. She blamed her timing, her choices, her words. That's the trick of the enemy, to make her believe that a closed door is a punishment when it was actually a divine pause to redirect her steps. What she thought was a delay in her destiny was actually a divine detour, saving her from something that would have cost her peace, dignity, or even her soul. The protected woman learns over time that not every no is negative. Some of the best things God ever did for her was say no when she wanted him to say yes. She grows to understand that rejection isn't a reflection of her worth. It's a reflection of God's wisdom. And even when the no breaks her heart, she clings to the truth that God never removes without a reason. He never subtracts without planning a multiplication. He doesn't deny without preparing a greater destiny. Sometimes God will let her get close enough to taste it, just to teach her how to trust him when it's ripped away. And in that tension between almost and not quite, he's building her discernment. He's strengthening her dependence. He's sharpening her spiritual vision so that next time she doesn't chase what was never hers in the first place. She'll look back later, months or even years down the road, and thank God with tears in her eyes. She'll say, God, I didn't understand it then, but now I see why you didn't let it happen. And that gratitude becomes her fuel. Because once she understands the protection that comes through rejection, she stops fighting closed doors and starts trusting the God who controls them. This kind of woman no longer panics when something slips through her fingers. She doesn't chase what walks away. She doesn't break down over a no, because her identity is no longer attached to outcomes. It's rooted in obedience. If God says move, she moves. If he says wait, she waits. If he says no, she lets it go. Not because it's easy, but because she's seen what happens when she tries to force something God never blessed. And evil people hate that kind of confidence. They hate that she doesn't beg to stay in rooms she was never meant to enter. They hate that she can walk away without a fight, without drama, without revenge. But what they don't know is that she's not walking away in weakness. She's walking in alignment. She's walking in peace. She's walking in trust, because she knows that rejection isn't a dead end. It's a divine reroute to something better, something safer, something sacred. That's why when she loses something now, she doesn't immediately collapse. She pauses. She prays. She listens. She remembers all the other times she thought she was being punished, only to discover she was being preserved. And that memory gives her peace in the present. Not everything that's denied is a disaster. Sometimes it's God lifting her out of harm's way before the crash ever comes. Have you ever wondered why some women, even the quietest, most humble, and kind-hearted ones, seem to draw opposition for no apparent reason? People gossip about her without knowing her. They roll their eyes when she walks in the room. They try to exclude her, sabotage her, discredit her, and she's left thinking, what did I do wrong? The truth, she didn't do anything wrong. She did everything right. Because when a woman is chosen, when she's covered, when she's protected by God, she becomes a threat without even trying. She doesn't need to announce herself. She doesn't have to prove herself. The moment she walks into a space, the atmosphere shifts. And it's not because she's loud or flashy, it's because she carries something divine. There's a presence, a power, a spiritual authority on her that disturbs what's not of God. Darkness is uncomfortable in her light. That's why the attacks come out of nowhere. That's why people she barely knows seem to turn against her. It's not her personality, it's her anointing. Evil people don't waste energy on the irrelevant. They target what intimidates them. And the enemy sees what she carries before she even fully steps into it. That's why the warfare begins before the platform. That's why she's under pressure before the promise. She's not hated because she's arrogant. She's hated because she's marked, chosen, set apart. And the enemy doesn't like that. She walks into rooms and immediately senses resistance. People become uncomfortable around her, not because she's done anything wrong, but because her presence exposes what they're trying to hide. The jealousy isn't about her success. It's about the fact that she did it with grace. The gossip isn't about her mistakes. It's because they couldn't stop her progress. The shade isn't about her flaws. It's about the fact that they can't touch her favor. There's something threatening about a woman who knows who she is in God. She doesn't beg for attention. She doesn't crave validation. She moves in silence. And yet her presence is loud in the spirit. Demons tremble when she prays. Strongholds shake when she worships. Chains fall when she shows up with faith. That's not just charisma, that's God's covering at work. And when evil people see her, they don't just see a woman, they see a warrior that's been through the fire and didn't get burned. She may look ordinary on the outside, but spiritually, she's a giant. And giants don't walk unnoticed. The enemy sends people to frustrate her, discourage her, delay her, because he knows he can't destroy her. So he settles for distraction. He tries to surround her with confusion, send betrayal into her camp, and stir up unnecessary conflict. Not because she's weak, but because she's too powerful to be left alone. But what the enemy doesn't realize is that every attack only awakens her deeper. Every betrayal builds her discernment. Every lie strengthens her voice. What was sent to break her only pushes her closer to God. And when she leans into God's presence, the protection over her life becomes undeniable. She starts to understand that the attacks aren't signs of defeat. They're evidence of assignment. So you don't get attacked for being average. You don't face this kind of resistance when you're walking in circles. You only get that level of warfare when you're headed somewhere holy. When your life is dangerous to darkness, evil will do anything to stop you. But here's the thing, it can't. Because the woman who is protected by God is never outnumbered. Even if it looks like she's surrounded, heaven is standing behind her. She doesn't need to clap back. She doesn't need to defend herself. God does that for her. He fights in silence, in the unseen, in ways she may never know until later. And while evil people keep wondering why their plans don't work, why their words don't stick, why their traps keep failing, it's because she's covered. There's a hedge around her that can't be broken by envy, bitterness, or spiritual warfare. And though it hurts to be misunderstood, to be misjudged, to be mistreated, she rises above it. She learns to walk with her head high. Not because the attacks stop, but because she knows what they mean. She's a target because she's chosen. She's opposed because she's affected. She's under pressure because her destiny is too great to go unnoticed. When you're protected by God, you don't blend in. You don't go unnoticed. You don't move through life without resistance. You draw fire because you carry fire. And that fire lights up every dark place around you, whether people like it or not. Have you ever noticed how the closer some women get to their breakthrough, the lonelier they become? It's like people start pulling back. Conversations dry up, invitations disappear, and suddenly she's left in a quiet place she never asked to enter. At first she wonders, did I do something wrong? But as time passes, she starts to realize that what felt like abandonment was actually divine isolation, a sacred strategy from God to protect her, refine her, and realign her. Because when a woman is chosen and protected by God, He doesn't just remove her enemies, He also removes the distractions disguised as friends. God isolates to insulate. He separates to elevate. Not everyone who starts the journey with her is meant to finish it. Not everyone who claps for her is clapping with a pure heart. And God, in His infinite wisdom, knows what she can't see. So He starts peeling people off, slowly, quietly, and sometimes painfully. But that's the cost of protection. That's the price of carrying purpose. God won't let just anybody have access to a woman who's marked for more. In that lonely place, God begins to deal with her deeply. The noise dies down. The opinions fade. And in the silence, she starts to hear God with new clarity. Not the kind of clarity you get in a crowd, but the kind you only find in solitude. She realizes that some voices were so loud, they were drowning out the whisper of the Holy Spirit. And once they were gone, His voice became undeniable. He began to show her who she really was, what she carried, and why the isolation wasn't punishment. It was preparation. This kind of woman begins to understand that isolation is not the absence of people, it's the presence of purpose. God pulls her back so He can build her up. He hides her so He can heal her. He quiets her surroundings so He can strengthen her inner world. In this space, she isn't performing. She isn't proving. She isn't pleasing. She's simply becoming. And that becoming happens in stillness. Evil people can't follow her here. They can't manipulate her in this place. They can't feed off her energy, exploit her kindness, or twist her words. God shuts the door. Not out of cruelty, but out of divine care. Because some attacks require her to be hidden. Some blessings require her to be separated. Some growth requires her to be alone. And it's in that aloneness that she finds a depth of strength she didn't know she had. She starts talking to God like He's her best friend. Because in that season He is. She stops performing for people who never truly saw her. She stops shrinking herself to fit into places that were never built for her purpose. She stops apologizing for outgrowing the environments that used to feel comfortable. Because now she realizes comfort was keeping her small. In isolation, that was God expanding her capacity. She begins to pray with more fire. Not because she's trying to impress anyone, but because her spirit has been ignited in the secret place. Her worship becomes deeper. Her discernment becomes sharper. Her vision becomes clearer. What used to distract her doesn't even move her anymore. And what used to break her doesn't even faze her now. That's what happens when God protects you through isolation. You come out of it refined, not ruined. The beauty of isolation is that it also reveals who's real and who's not. Because when she stops being useful, when she stops being available, when she stops being the one who always shows up, she sees who disappears. And rather than mourn those losses, she starts to recognize them as mercy. She no longer begs to stay connected to people who were only assigned to a previous version of her. The isolation showed her that elevation requires separation. God uses this season to upgrade everything about her. Her thinking, her habits, her boundaries, her circle. He teaches her how to protect her peace. He teaches her that solitude is not loneliness, it's leadership. It's where the next version of her is being born. It's where he downloads strategies, visions, healing, and resilience. And when she emerges, she doesn't come back the same. She comes back with power, poise, and purpose that intimidates everything that tried to break her before. So if the phone isn't ringing, if people have walked away, if the room has gotten quiet, it's not a sign of defeat. It's a sign of divine development. Because sometimes the most protected place a woman can be is not in the crowd, not in the spotlight, not in the applause, but in the secret place where God keeps her covered and concealed until it's time. Have you ever looked at a woman and wondered how she's still smiling after everything she's been through? How she still carries peace while walking through chaos? How she still shows up with grace when life has handed her every reason to fall apart? That kind of woman isn't just mentally strong, she's spiritually covered. Her peace is not ordinary, it's supernatural. It doesn't come from circumstances being perfect. It comes from knowing who's standing with her in the middle of the storm. When a woman is protected by God, one of the most powerful signs is this: she has a peace that doesn't make sense. It's the kind of peace that can't be explained on paper. The math doesn't add up. The logic doesn't compute. People see her life and say, you should be angry, broken, bitter, fearful. But instead, she's grounded, calm, centered, focused. That's not because her life is free of trouble. It's because her spirit is rooted in truth. She has learned that peace is not the absence of storms. It's the presence of God in the middle of it. Her peace is not fragile because it's not dependent on people behaving right or situations turning in her favor. It's deeper than that. It's anchored. It's sustained by her relationship with the one who controls what she cannot. She doesn't just know about God, she trusts him. And that trust creates a sanctuary inside of her, even when everything outside of her is falling apart. She's been through seasons where the pressure should have crushed her. She's walked through betrayal that should have hardened her. She's faced storms that would have sent others running. But instead of losing her mind, she found her stillness. Not because she's numb, but because she knows how to tap into a peace that the world can't take away. Evil people hate that about her. They hate that she doesn't react, that she doesn't break, that she doesn't spiral. They throw chaos at her, expecting her to fold, and instead she stays still. Not passive, not emotionless, but deeply secure. Her spirit has been trained by experience. And every time she was attacked, she learned how to lean on God more and lean on people less. She learned how to silence the external voices and listen for the whisper of heaven. Her peace is her shield. It's what protects her from reacting in ways that would damage her character. It's what keeps her from clapping back when she's provoked. It's what allows her to stay silent when being falsely accused. She's not interested in proving her innocence. She's invested in protecting her peace. That's what makes her dangerous to the kingdom of darkness. She can't be baited into drama because she's operating from a higher dimension. She's also learned that her peace is her responsibility. She doesn't give anyone permission to disturb it. She's guarded about who she lets into her space. Not because she's antisocial, but because she understands spiritual boundaries. Not everyone deserves access to her presence. Not everyone should be allowed into her emotional environment. Her peace is expensive, and she's no longer entertaining anything that costs her more than she can afford to give. And the deeper her peace, the more unstoppable she becomes. She starts making decisions not out of panic, but out of wisdom. She moves when God says move, not when fear says run. She speaks when it's time to speak, not when anxiety demands answers. Her emotions no longer control her because she's learned to live from the spirit and not the flesh. And that shift changes everything. Her peace becomes her power. The world around her may be crumbling, but she's not shaken. Financial challenges come. She prays, but she doesn't panic. Relationships shift. She grieves, but she doesn't unravel. Doors close. She pauses, but she doesn't fall into despair. That's not strength from within, it's strength from above. It's the hand of God holding her steady when the ground beneath her starts to shake. This peace also becomes her compass. It guides her. If she loses it, she knows something's wrong. If she walks into a room and it lifts, she pays attention. If a relationship begins to cost her peace, she reevaluates it because she knows that wherever God is, peace follows. And if peace leaves, it's often a sign that he's leading her in another direction. She doesn't chase what costs her peace. She doesn't negotiate with confusions. She doesn't normalize emotional chaos. Her peace is now her standard. And if something doesn't align with it, it can't stay. Not out of pride, but out of protection. Because she knows what it took to get to this place, and she refuses to lose it trying to hold on to people or situations God has already removed. Have you ever seen a woman take a hit, emotionally, spiritually, even physically, and just when it looked like it was over for her, she rose again? Not limping, not crawling, but stronger, wiser, more focused, and more fierce than ever before. That's not luck. That's not ego. That's divine resilience. When a woman is protected by God, no matter what life throws at her, she bounces back every single time. See, people often underestimate her. They look at her kindness and assume she's weak. They see her silence and assume she's defeated. They witness her heartbreak and assume she's broken for good. But what they don't see is that every time she falls, God lifts her in ways the world can't comprehend. She doesn't rise because life gets easier. She rises because she is covered by a force greater than the one trying to break her. She's been through betrayals that would have shattered others. She's cried prayers no one knows about. She's had nights where she laid in bed staring at the ceiling, wondering if she would ever feel whole again. And yet she woke up the next morning and kept going. Not because she had the strength on her own, but because God breathed strength back into her bones. And every time they counted her out, he counted her back in. Her bounce back is holy. Her comebacks are supernatural. The same people who thought they had silenced her now watch in awe as she rebuilds what was torn down. Not bitter, not vengeful, but reborn. Because when God protects a woman, he doesn't just shield her, he strengthens her through the storm. And the storm that was meant to bury her becomes the stage where he reveals his power through her. Evil people hate that kind of resilience. They hate that their schemes didn't destroy her. They hate that she didn't collapse when they left. They hate that after all the manipulation, all the gaslighting, all the sabotage, she still found a way to heal, to grow, to thrive. She didn't just survive the fire, she walked out with more clarity, more discernment, more boldness. And that's not something the enemy can stand. You see, when the enemy can't steal her calling, he tries to crush her spirit. He tries to break her through disappointment, delay, and betrayal. But what he doesn't realize is that every time she hits the ground, she gathers more wisdom. Every heartbreak becomes fertilizer for her growth. Every rejection becomes a redirection to something greater. Every fall becomes the foundation for something deeper. She doesn't waste pain. She doesn't ignore the hurt, but she also doesn't let it define her. She takes time to heal, but she doesn't stay wounded. She allows herself to feel the weight of what happened, but she also allows God to lift it off her shoulders. And when he does, she comes back with a vengeance, not against people, but against doubt, fear, and spiritual stagnation. There's something terrifying to hell about a woman who refuses to stay down. A woman who says, yes, I cried, but I'm still moving. A woman who says, yes, I lost some things, but I gained something deeper, God's voice. She is unstoppable, not because she's fearless, but because she's fought battles most people never saw and still chooses faith. People look at her glow now and assume she's lucky. They see her confidence and think it came easy. But what they don't see are the silent seasons, the hidden wars, the deep nights of prayer, where she surrendered everything just to wake up with enough courage to take the next step. She earned this bounce back, not through manipulation, but through submission, not through shortcuts, but through the long road of obedience. She knows what it feels like to be knocked down. And that's why she walks with such fire now. That's why her faith intimidates the enemy. That's why her peace can't be shaken. Because she's already been through hell and didn't come out smelling like smoke. She came out smelling like purpose, like calling, like oil that only crushing could produce. And now every time life tries